Thanks for holding. Thanks for holding, everyone. Just going to give it a couple more minutes here, and then we'll kick off. Okay, I think we'll just let people shuffle in. Marco, if you could just handle the admin of the room, that would be great. Marco, you want to change the slide, please? Wonderful. So, look, I'd like to take this chance to welcome everyone who's joined for this call today. I'm Tarek Hammoudi, and as you all know, I'm a large investor in Nanoco. I thought we wanted to use this as an opportunity to introduce ourselves in this highly qualified group of directors that we've slated for nomination at the upcoming EGM on August 14th. Obviously, we're all relative unknowns to Nanoco's investors, and you've probably seen some publications we've put out around the situation on our website. But I wanted to personally introduce myself and use this as a chance for Nanoco's investors to get to know the nominees and their qualifications. A bit about myself: I'm a professional investor managing my own personal family office with a small team, and I'm formerly of Morgan Stanley on Bybrook Capital. I spent my career investing across the capital structure in both public and private markets, and consider myself a generalist. I do take an activist approach to investing and generally focus on small or mid caps. I collaborate a lot with other institutional investors as well, who you will have seen the likes of Baupost and other funds mentioned that were introduced in Nanoco. But in any case, I've been invested in Nanoco for over 3 years now, and I now hold around 5% of the company. I am supported by a number of other institutional shareholders, and have regularly engaged with retail shareholders from kind of day one of my investment, and have also attracted a fair amount of capital to the story. I have a successful track record, whether that was when I was on the buy side or now in managing my personal wealth. I'm an advisor and co-investor to investment funds or hedge funds or credit funds, if you want to call them that. I also want to say one thing is that I've been an activist in this situation for as long as I've built or held my position in the companies. I've been regularly engaged with Brian Tenner and the board, and whether that be assisting them with efforts to speak to financiers, sharing the legal advice I had commissioned to understand the Samsung litigation proceedings and technical work, and on the back of that, Nanoco's core shareholders, Lombard Odier, actually reached out to me, impressed with my knowledge, and did a number of meetings for me. So I have an intimate knowledge of the company and intimate workings of what's gone on. And that'll probably lead you to ask, well, why are you doing this? It's slightly unusual for an individual or private investor to be trying to attempt or running a campaign of this nature. The reality is that my investigation in the Samsung litigation proceedings laid bare some very serious concerns at this company, and what I view as potential wrongdoing. As you know, the allegations are very serious, and I'm pursuing these matters. And you'll see much more in the next couple of days why I don't think the company has adequately addressed what are very serious matters, particularly over the sharing of information to certain shareholders. In my view, we've already proven that there's there is questions over malfeasance that need to be answered, and this is a board that just doesn't want to confront these matters. I've engaged management for a good few years, and frankly, I've just lost trust in all that they say. I engaged in good faith with an attempt to unlock value for shareholders, and I just don't think that faith was reciprocated. It's well documented, and as the company themselves lay out, there's been a lot of dialogue. My interests are aligned with all shareholders. This is I'm spending a lot of money and time to ensure that the right people get on this board, and that shareholder funds are simply not squandered. I think it's an exciting time for Nanoco. I think coming out on the back of this successful assertion of their IP against Nanoco, there are other opportunities out there. But I think the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking on the life of these patents. There's clearly a dearth of experience of IP licensing and litigation within the company, and frankly, I think that this board needs to be run with more independent oversight. So I think there are a number of easy levers to pull to unlock value for shareholders, and the company trading at a huge discount to net cash, tells you that there needs to be some fresh faces, or an injection of independence on the board. Like I said, the clock's ticking. I think Nanoco needs to build a world-class in-house IP licensing business, and avoid the incurrence of costly advisor and legal bills. And the organic business needs to deliver. We heard yesterday from the company that cash burn rate has actually been guided higher to £6 million per annum. So, it's time for the company to show shareholders the money. And again, after years of misstatements and changing the goalposts on guidance, I think it's important for shareholders to have independent directors who can oversee what is going on with our sensing customers, what is going on with some of these other Asian consumer electronics customers, etc. And look, the market just doesn't lie, and the discount to net cash tells the story. So we've arrived at a point where there needs to be an injection of independence on this board, which is a very closed and what I use cozy club, too closely associated with certain shareholders, we all know. But I've identified a list of nominees who are all highly successful, qualified, come from a mix of background of QDs, material science, IP litigation, and growth investing. And it's not easy to get a group like this together into a situation which is contentious on its own, which clearly is confrontational, etc., where there will be a requirement to get to the bottom of what's happened and to go on and extract value for shareholders. But we've managed to get some great candidates together through an independent process, and all of these people are independent from me. So any notion that these directors are Tarek's people or they're his cabal, it's we have no past commercial relationships with each other or friendships. These are all independent candidates. And I would put it to shareholders that if you're not happy with these candidates or you'd like to see others, well, we're happy to have that debate, and my door is always open. So I want to use this as a chance today to give investors an opportunity to get to know these folks. As I know it's not easy seeing unknown names in front of you, particularly when you've already seen such serious wealth destruction. And I'd like to start off by letting everyone introduce themselves, and firstly with Eric Ochman, who's a growth and VC investor and former McKinsey guy. Go for it, Eric. 1 second. Let me just.
There we go.
There you go.
Good morning and good afternoon to others. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'll just take a couple of seconds to introduce myself. My name is Eric Ochman. I'm a U.S. and German national. I've spent my career working across the tech spectrum and have significantly, I'll talk about roughly 4 kind of unicorn events. Educational background, aeronautics and astronautics and finance from MIT. First big project or big undertaking was taking a leadership role in the building of McKinsey's product development practice, the applied product development practice, which is the group that went in and actually and continues to go in and design and redesign and bring to market products, which has been one of McKinsey's highly successful product lines. I then transitioned into venture capital and was one of the first venture capitalists in Europe, raising and investing 2 funds, pan-European funds, investing in life science and tech and the interfaces of the two. Went into operative management. I was responsible for the product that led to the $5.1 billion acquisition of Costa Coffee by Coca-Cola, and was a co-founder of Vinova, which is another UK company, which produced MPEG-5 encoding. That's the compression that applies to a large percentage of the of internet traffic. I've held, I've started, invested, or led over 50 tech companies, and have held multiple executive and non-executive roles, as well as committees such as audit to ensure good governance.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric. Du-Young, do you want to tell the audience a bit about yourself? Thank you. You're on mute there. Greg, why don't you?
Sorry.
Okay, there you go. Go for it.
Sorry about that. Thank you. I was a corporate licensing executive at AT&T during the 90s, and since 2000, I have built 4 patent licensing companies representing individual inventors and third-party patent owners, and generated over $1.2 billion. I have managed or approved over 1,000 infringement lawsuits and over 2,000 settlements. Currently, I'm the CEO of Equitas Technologies, my 4th licensing company, launched in 2016. Recently, we had $17 million in annual revenue, about $5.5 million in earnings. We also won 3 out of 3 trials last year, obtained 2 8-figure verdicts and 1 7-figure verdict. Before Equitas, I was the CEO of Acacia Research Group under a public holding company called Acacia Research Corporation. During my 8 years, I grew the annual revenue from $4 million to $251 million, and from $6 million of loss to $60 million in net income, and from $110 million in market cap to $2.1 billion at the peak. At that time, we were about twice the size of American Airlines in terms of market cap. As a result, about half of Acacia employees became millionaires. I would love to replicate this at Nanoco.
That's great. Thanks, Du-Young. And Greg?
Sure, thank you. Hi, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon. I'm Greg Moeller. My 25-year career in advanced materials, robotics, and artificial intelligence has been marked by revolutionary advancements made by each of the initiatives. I was integral to QD Vision's 2004 inception, leveraging the potential of quantum dot light-emitting diode devices. Identified 2 researchers, both Seth Sullivan and Jonathan Steckel, as brilliant PhD candidates working in the lab, working in their respective labs at MIT, created and articulated the business vision, and secured the first institutional funding, paving the way for the company's commercial success. During my tenure at QD Vision, I won revenue producing contracts in flexible displays, shortwave IR sensor development, and night vision devices, in addition to establishing business relationships with all the major players in the display industry. Even after my departure in 2007, the trajectory I set led to major successes like the Sony Bravia KD65, the first commercial product to use quantum dots, earning Best in Show at the 2013 Consumer Electronics Show. As I understand it, Sony's order was worth hundreds of millions of dollars at this time, leading Goldman Sachs to start an IPO underwriting effort at a valuation near $2 billion. I'll stop there and I hand it back to you, Tariq.
Perfect. Ben Barnett.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Ben Barnett. I'm based here in London, originally from the US. I come to this from the investment background. So my career started in the US as an investment banker, and then with a private equity firm called Fortress in the US and in London, and recently with Soros Fund Management, the family office of George Soros, investing across European assets and companies. I've been involved in a board member with two companies in my career thus far. One was a 2 billion euro plus market cap company that we were a cornerstone investor in, and I was on the board, and led to a very successful exit to private equity in 2018. We sold the company to Blackstone, and then more recently with an acquisition company seeking for a business combination. And in that circumstance, we were unable to find a business combination. We've returned capital to shareholders plus a small profit. I find this situation to be very intriguing. I see the intellectual property market as very compelling. It's an interesting market with potential for very attractive risk-adjusted returns with the right team. And I'd stress that, with the right team. And I've been very impressed by the team that Tarek has put together here and recruited for this initiative, and see very strong potential to create very, very strong returns for shareholders with a pivot in strategy. Thank you.
Thanks. Last but not least, Tim.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ik-Chun Tin Kang. I have more than 30 years of experiences in international marketing and sales. Most recently, I was an executive advisor to the board of Ubiquitous, a public company in Korea, South Korea, with data networking products. I spent my entire career in high-tech industry, initially as an engineer, and then technical marketing and sales. I have worked for the likes of AT&T, Alcatel, Lucent Technologies, and Juniper Networks. After Juniper, I was a co-founder of a startup company called AirPlug, which produced connected car solution. And this company was acquired by Hyundai Motor Company 3 years ago. I have extensive contacts throughout the world, including many Asian consumer electronics manufacturers. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We've obviously laid out our concerns for the board, which we don't believe have been addressed. And obviously the message back has been to just, trust us, we'll protect your cash. I think the covenants we've laid out are very much rule contra to what Nanoco's board is saying. And here I hope that investors see that there is a truly independent slate of nominees who aren't linked to any such shareholders. And as I always joke, if we don't like one or two or all of these guys, clearly they can be removed. But I genuinely think that this is a very critical time for the company. I think investors deserve answers, and when it comes to what is a very interesting opportunity on the organic side of the business, I think it really needs independent oversight. It's very rare to find candidates like Greg Meller available. I mean, how many people walking this earth have been involved in the quantum dot space as closely as Greg, and successfully as Greg has. Obviously, Samsung has taken a stronghold over the market, but there's no doubt that Greg possesses the experience and history and expertise and network to add value to Nanoco at board level, right? And I think the same can be said particularly for Duyong Lee as the company moves forward to most efficiently monetize its patent portfolio. I think what we'd like to do, we've received a lot of inbound questions, and I think we've narrowed those down to a few key ones, but I'd also like to open this up to discussion and questioning from other investors. But to start with, I think what some investors will be wondering out there is, well, great guys, you've come here and you've told us you've got experience monetizing IP and quantum dots, but what would you do differently? What do you think wrong, and what would you do differently if you were on the board, or what value could you add? And I'll first ping that question at Duyong Lee. Duyong, when you're sitting there looking at how Nanoco's managed its IP, even inclusive of the litigation proceedings with Samsung, what they need to do forward. What are your views, or what do you think should have happened and should happen here?
Yeah, good question. Just to give you the context, I have done, over the last 25 years, I've done over 20 settlements with Samsung. So as a result, I have great insights into how they negotiate settlements, when they settle and for how much. And by the way, I happen to be in Korea right now, and I just had lunch with the head of their IP department, executive VP in charge of settlement, who I believe was also the final decision maker in the Nanoco case. But anyway, setting all that aside, I think the Samsung proceedings could have been done much better and quite differently. I know they filed a case in Texas, which is okay. But I also understand that they were seeking a permanent injunction, which is not the right place to go. I mean, to get an injunction or what we call exclusionary order, you have to go to the International Trade Commission, which will get you the results in 1.5 years. And they don't even care what happens with the IPR. They'll zip through a lot faster than the IPR process. And once you get them stopped at the border, they will have to come to negotiate. And I think the other thing is also within the damages model, I see some significant deficiencies. They had high, medium, low, different ranges and so on. But I think what they should have done is to look at the most the best non-infringing alternative. And to me, it's not the non-quantum dot TVs, but it's rather LG's OLED TVs, which compete head-on with Samsung. So I think they were kind of in the wrong direction in doing that. We talk about 150 million or 65 million being a good deal, but I think the reason Samsung settled with Nanoco is not because they liked Nanoco, it's because they were afraid of going to trial as much, if not more, as Nanoco. Plus, they had this willful infringement looming in the background. So I think it was a matter of just negotiating more effectively and getting far more money than what they've gotten. And finally, I think the interests were not aligned. I think the board members were ready to take the deal as long as they see some money coming in net, instead of, even though there's a good chance of winning through trial, through appeal, I think they just didn't feel like taking a chance, even though, let's say, they have a 90-95% chance of winning. They just did not want to take a chance, and I think that's what happened. I know all the people involved in the litigation on both sides, and they're all my friends. So net, I think Nanoco just kind of gave it away and could have gotten a heck of a lot more than $150 million. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Duyong. And one other question, because obviously there's the board's insinuating that the idea is to asset strip this business, or that we're patent trolls, etc. Although that term is misused. But Can you explain exactly how, Equitas or in previous form at Acacia, how your business works, what you do for clients? Starting when you identify a patent to monetizing it.
Yeah. So, patent troll is a misnomer. It's a term that was coined by infringers, basically, who wanted to attack any third-party patent owners who wanted to get money out of them, infringers. So, because they don't make any products, there was nothing that they can do other than to call names. And that's why they came up with the name patent troll. It's just totally nonsense. Anyway, so I represent individual inventors and small companies who don't have any resources to go after these large companies, even though they know full well that they're infringing, because it costs a lot of money and they just don't have the money. So it turns out that most of our clients are mined through our own efforts. Even when the clients don't even know that there is infringement, we reach out to them. So I would say well over 95% of the patents that we represent are from our own mining efforts and going out and finding a Rembrandt in the attic, basically, and signing them up. And because of our credibility, my experience having done it so many times for so many years, they trust me in that they let me go license the patents on their behalf without requiring any upfront payment. So I don't pay anything to any of my clients, and yet I am also very selective in the sense that we reject, I would say, over 95% of the matters that we evaluate. So it's not like a patent troll going out and hustling and trying to get a $50,000, $100,000 just for the cost of litigation. We don't get involved in any of that stuff, and that term is a total misnomer when it comes to how we do our business. So once we get together our client's portfolio, we evaluate through an extensive 3-month due diligence period. We put together a package that is almost litigation quality that's ready to go. And we reach out to many of our lawyers that we have used before and have gotten good results. So we bring the whole thing on a silver plate for them to evaluate. And as a result, we effectively become their marketing channel where they don't have to evaluate 100 patents to identify 3-4 good ones. So they love to build a relationship. And, I work with a lot of those people, well-known, some large companies, national brand. So we selectively decide which ones to choose, not to choose based on the specific characteristics of the portfolio, where we're going to file, what venue, including ITC action that I mentioned. Looking at the whole world, again, I've done this for a long time. I don't know personally of any other individual. I mean, a law firm might say, as a law firm, 100-year history, we have done 1,000 lawsuits and we've done so many deals, but I do not know of any individual in the world, whether an attorney or not, who has built 4 successful licensing companies, generating $1.2 billion, and having so much experience of initiating or managing over 1,000 lawsuits involving some 20, 30 deals with Samsung. So, it's not an easy task. I don't have a lot of competition, but in this business, you just have to know what you're doing, because in the wrong hands, you can have a great portfolio that gives you $5 million and you might think it's a great deal and you're happy. But in the right hand, you could have gotten $50 or $100 million. I mean, there's no benchmark you can look up like buying and selling a house. And so a lot of this is art as much as science, and you just have to know what you're doing.
Great. We'll come back to that, Dion, what you think about what the opportunity set is going forward for Nanoco. But I'd just like to turn things over to Greg here, because obviously, the organic prospects or the prospects for Nanoco's organic business are very interesting, and obviously the elephant in the room is ST Micro. So Greg, you being the experienced quantum dot technician in the room, we have questions over the robustness of Nanoco's technology and questions over why it hasn't been commercialized yet. What are the delays, or when will the ramp up happen? How would you assess or guide a management team to assess, or shareholders, how robust Nanoco's technology is?
Sure. So many of my colleagues from QD Vision and have gone on to take senior positions at companies working with quantum dots. In fact, The person who's leading the development of the sensor that we suspect Nanoco's dots are being used in is a guy named Jonathan Steckel. Johnny was one of the 2 PhD students that I plucked out of MIT to found QD Vision. Obviously, I'm staying away from communicating with Johnny directly right now to keep him out of any sort of conflict. However, we've got what is a very special bond as co-founders of a company. We've gone to battle together, and we've got that loyalty of sort of brothers in arms. So in terms of the stability of that relationship, if there were a transition, I can't think of anything other than strengthening the relationship between Nanoco and ST Micro, assuming it exists and is in good shape now.
Thanks, Greg. I'm going to put you on the spot, and I know Nanoco's put some misleading information or published misleading information about you in a legal dispute you were involved in. Could you just clarify for shareholders, what exactly happened and how you managed it?
Sure. So this suit was settled and was never tried on its merits, unfortunately. The facts around it are this: I had started a company to model the electric grid and use artificial intelligence to trade financial contracts in the wholesale electricity market. My model depended on really no traders or humans in sort of the vision that we had painted. And I hired a trader who was a friend at another firm and looking to leave his firm to join me. When he did this, his employer, who had a model that was built entirely on traders, saw the opportunity to pursue me, and I believe his goal was to steal my software and algorithms. But for those who have any knowledge of artificial intelligence, you must use graphics processing units, or GPUs, in order to train and to run artificial intelligence algorithms. And the plaintiff admittedly did not use any GPUs in their process. So, that pretty much proves that there was no theft of intellectual property.
I'd advise anyone with extra time on their hands to simply, read Greg's sworn affidavit. Greg had transparently brought this matter up to me when we were connected. But it's as I always say, if you're doing business for 30 years, you're going to successfully, so you're going to piss someone off. And we did chat through this, and I was happy that with the devil in the detail that it was obviously a vexatious and annoying lawsuit, but don't see any issues with his integrity, and in fact his references, or he's come back with glowing references. I just want to also go back to Nanoco's IP portfolio, and when you on a forward-looking basis, what do you think needs to be done? I know you and I have discussed in the past that there's a question over rationalizing the portfolio, and are there too many? When you're thinking of how to manage a portfolio, and obviously these portfolios cost money to maintain, and what to litigate, what to license, do you use funding, to use contingency lawyers? How would you extract or monetize value from the IP portfolio?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. There's a lot of different ways to answer, but let me dissect a little bit. So in terms of managing portfolio, currently the company has over 370 patents, as I understand, applications. I also noticed that many of their core patents, what they call CFQD portfolio, they are issued in foreign countries, such as Israel, Hong Kong, Taiwan, India, Australia, Finland, and I may have missed a couple of others, but those patents are worthless. I've done licensing for 35 years, and you're not going to get a penny more having those patents. You can put them up on the wall and have a bragging right, but it really doesn't mean anything. You're wasting money. And the other thing is, Nanoco doesn't need 370 patents to defend itself or go out and make money. Look what happened in the actual litigation. You guys picked 5 patents, best of the best, and even that had to be narrowed down right before trial to about 2 patents. And then when you license everything that you have. So you're not getting any more value having 370 patents more than a few patents that you end up litigating. So my proposal and my idea would be, go out and pick the best of the best. And I don't mean to say just 5, but maybe pick 15, 20 of those and keep them for monetization as well as for defense. And for the rest, you can package them and maybe split them up in different technology bases and so on, sell them up. There are companies who want to go out and buy those things, and buying and selling is fairly common in the marketplace. That will turn into money. I also noticed that the company reduced their portfolio size from 700 to about 500 as of last October. That's in the span of 1.5 years. Well, instead of just dropping those patents, I would have sold those patents, recycled them, any way you can make money. So I think there's a lot of things that they haven't done in the way of managing portfolio. Now, let's talk about monetization. Of the 5 patents that were litigated, one of them was already sold to Samsung, which they claim to be Nanoco, but be that as it may, now they have 4 patents. Those 4 patents are the gems, what they call, crown jewels. They're all going to expire between 2 years, less than 2 years, to about 4.5 years. Now, if nobody's infringing in the next 4.5 years, there is no money to be collected. So they need to move very, very fast, at super fast light speed, and be able to identify those infringers and pursue them as aggressively as they can. Perhaps do an ITC action because you get quick results and IPRs don't matter. And I saw their presentation yesterday about doing a heat map and have a graph of different charts. I mean, to me that's all waste of time and waste of reason. I would go straight into doing claim charts, do infringement analysis, put together claim charts proving infringement, knock on the door with or without litigation, get their attention, and get it done. And I don't know why it has been taking so long. In fact, they didn't have to wait until they're done with Samsung. They could have done this a long time ago, start the whole process and get ready to launch the minute they settled with Samsung. But, obviously they didn't do that. They're doing everything sequentially, which again, doesn't make any sense. And I would also look into other applications, not just the CFQD TVs, where obviously Samsung has the majority of the market share. And I understand that the remaining players are using cadmium, cadmium-based, in fact, materials, and because it's cheaper and it's probably as efficient. So I don't think there's a good chance of getting any money out of those. So I would look into other markets, whether it's LED lighting or sensors, try to identify hopefully some newer patents that are fundamental, what they call seminal patents that we can use to go out and make money on. And that has to be done very quickly. It's a moving train. Patents have limited life, and the technology keeps changing so fast that if you miss that window, you're going to get nothing out of it.
Great, thank you. I've seen some comments about Du Yong's potential pay packet and guiding back to how successful he was at Acacia Research. And I mean, my view in all this has been clearly having someone like Du Yong on board allows you to avoid paying expensive contingency lawyers, the likes of Epicenter Law. And for the record, Ron Epstein is a respected man in the patent enforcement industry, but I wasn't aware that he was paid many $1 million for his services, and of course that he was a childhood friend of Michael Edelman. So it just didn't feel right. It's not to take anything away from Ron, but I think in Du Yong, there's one of the leaders in this space who's put himself forward to serve Nanoco. It's rare to find someone like who holds his skill set, and as we genuinely mean, these patents have a short life. There's as Brian Tenner openly admitted in an interview with an IP publication in the U.S. just after the Samsung settlement, the company doesn't have licensing or litigation expertise. He openly admits that. I think it's very important to get some of that expertise onto the board. Greg, I want to go back to you and ask, we've discussed this before, but when you're thinking about, getting quantum dots into a device or into a supply chain, and obviously you having experience, having been through it with Sony, what is the secret sauce? Where do you think Nanoco is in terms of commercialization? And obviously we know you're sometimes waiting for your end customer to move to get into a device but what do you think is going on in the background if you parallel that to your experience?
Sure. So one of the things that I think needs to happen is sharpen the focus on a particular application. The Nanoco website reads very much like our original business plan at QD Vision. There's a lot of talk about many different applications and markets worth multiple billions of dollars. The challenge at the micro cap size of a company is until you focus on driving a particular application of quantum dots all the way through to what I call an electronic device, which I'm not talking about an iPhone, but a simple electronic stack that would make a display or make a sensor. You really are not going to get a design win, and you're not going to get into a product. So the question becomes, what is the right focus or product to focus on, and how do we get a design win? I'm not close enough to Nanoco yet to talk about the product that they might focus on, but what I can talk about is the process about how to do that. And the way that's done, so the ends, quantum dots are essentially a rock of semiconductor in the middle, a little tiny pebble, if you will. And on that pebble are a bunch of hairs, and those hairs are called ligands. And it's those hairs that increase the surface area of the rock and allow the quantum dots to float in solution. And there go colloidal-based quantum dots. In order to lock yourself into a design, you need to do one of two things. At QD Vision, we did a lot of functionalization of the end of those ligands so that you can imagine those hairs, when they're put into a sandwich of an electronic device, that's what touches the interface for the next layer of the electronics device. And putting functional ends on the end of those ligands is what improves the efficiency and improves the overall, we talk about external quantum efficiency, EQE. That's exactly where we need to focus. So it would be one of two things. And you can even see this in QD Vision's patent portfolio. Toward the 2010-11 timeframe, the patents that issued were functionalization of the ligands. The next step that you could do beyond the functionalization is start to work on a device itself and patent that device. So that can happen in any one of the different applications we're talking about. And I would, that would be the process I would take.
Thanks, Greg. If any of the investors attending have any questions, if you could type them in, that would be great. I think in the meantime, I'm sure shareholders would like to know why some of the nominees here are interested in this project. So I'm going to ask Eric Achman. Eric, why are you doing this? What interests you about Nanoco and this role?
Well, thanks, Tarek. This takes me back 20 years to the beginning of 2000 when I was involved in my first quantum company. It was a spin out of the Yoffe Institute, the Nobel Prize team. Quantum dots and quantum technology is incredibly powerful. It's the right space to be in. It's extremely exciting. And as Greg and Diego pointed out, the devil's in the detail to make it work. As a venture investor, it's been my experience that, as you go through the life of a company, there are times when you need to pivot, and sometimes those pivots can be extremely successful. This appears to be one of those times in Nanoco where a pivot is required, a pivot in direction, a pivot in capability, and that there's a possibility to create significant value doing so. The prerequisite for that, of course, is having a great team, and here seeing the people that have been assembled to do this, I think is inspiring, and gives me hope that in this exciting area, significant value can be created for shareholders and the stakeholders broadly.
Great, thanks, Eric. Du Young, the same to you. What? You're the ripe old age of 62. Why Nanoco? What piqued your interest here?
Right. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm 62 years old. I look a lot younger, and I feel like 35, in fact. And I think I can do it forever almost. So it's not that I'm looking for more money or anything. I mean, my life is good. I have a good company making good money, but I like challenge. So when I was approached about this opportunity, and I looked into that more, and I thought, this could be a good platform for me to replicate what I've done exactly, 10 years ago. I left about 10 years ago, I guess, and replicate the same success at Nanoco. When I joined Acacia, the company was about $100 million, and Nanoco is about in that range, I guess, with money. And but they were just getting their feet wet, didn't know what to do, but they wanted to maximize shareholder revenue. Shareholder value. So that's where I came in, and I just exponentially grew the company at the time. And I see the same opportunity. You guys have a good platform. You have good people, technical people, which I think is going to be even more helpful, because people wouldn't call you on NPE because you're actually making products. So you don't have to take a lot of heat for not making any product. So I see a lot of opportunities, and I think you have good people that we can use in, like reverse engineering and doing technical analysis in the licensing campaign. And I see a lot of synergy between the two. So I'd love to, my personal goal is to have everybody become a millionaire, including all you investors, and have people write on my tombstone saying, "Thank you, Du Young, you changed my life." That will really turn me on. That's why I'm doing this.
Thanks, Du Young. Thanks. I think there's a question that's come in. Well, there's a few come in by email, but what the proposed salaries of the nominees and who will serve as the chair of audit and remuneration committees. Well, there's with respect to chair of audit and remuneration, there's multiple people on this slate who've got experience in serving in those roles, namely Eric and Ben. I think when it comes to salaries, you'll have noted that in our presentation, we believe that compensation is far out of line for this current slate of directors in comparison to market comps, their other roles. I personally am of the view that board and director compensation needs to come down. And look, this needs to be a story that's aligned to growth and profit. I think what excites me the most is, the ability to plug in some of these people and, not only hope to extract as much as we can out of the organic business and the current portfolio of patents, but, to create a recurring profit or recurring revenue business model. And I think all the tools are there. And, the real upside for me is clearly creating earnings per share and the same type of emulating the same type of growth that Du Young was able to do at some of his previous roles and some of the other candidates. So yeah, all in all, I think we expect to see fees and salaries go lower. In fact, one other additional bit of information is we've heard back, and obviously I've been speaking to lots of former employees, et cetera, of Nanoco, and many of the whispers we've heard of the company is that they don't pay their PhDs, their technical people, enough. There have been a slew of people who have gone out the door, who have left to quantum science, who've left to other material science businesses. So I think it wouldn't be an issue. The next question on people, Nigel Pickett. The Pickett question has obviously come up, and I'll be very transparent saying that we reached out to Mr. Pickett at the start of this process. I think our concerns were around the general conduct of the entire board, and that we believe that there was an immediate requirement for independent members. We reached out to Mr. Pickett to see if he could help us answer some of these questions over what had happened. Viewing him as an innocent party and obviously the co-founder of the business. We are very happy to work with Nigel Pickett. I'd also note that there's a lot of talent and people who know Nanoco's quantum dots in and around Runcorn. I see no reason why this is a one-man business, and that should Mr. Pickett leave, that the other important technical staff would walk out the door. We want people on this board who are additive and add value to what Mr. Pickett does. I think it's time that Mr. Pickett delivered as well, right? We're talking it's 20 years without any real commercialization. We're on the cusp, but show me. I cannot take Nanoco's word for it anymore, and certainly on the back of what's happened with the Samsung litigation. It's time there are independent board members, and truly independent board members that come from and are elected by shareholders other than Lombard Odier and Mr. Richard Griffiths, and that's what I would say about that. I just got someone saying you didn't present any business plan, and what you will do when you're taking over the control of Nanoco. What will happen with the millions of cash? Will you pay a special dividend to shareholders? And if yes, how much? I think I first start by saying that with respect to any business plan, any independent board needs to get under the hood and see what they're actually dealing with, right? What is actually being developed with respect to the organic business and this relationship with STM? What steps is the board actually taking to assert their patents? You've got qualified people here who can oversee that process. It's too presumptive and early to say we've got this business plan for the business and that we promise to unlock this value. I think it is easy to say that these are a qualified group or a more qualified group and independent and would serve alongside any managers within the business today, right? The idea is to ensure continuity, and that's why with the aim was to secure people with experience in IP, in quantum dots, and managing these sorts of businesses. What will happen with the millions of cash? I want to see some cash back to shareholders. I don't want to see this turn into another WANdisco or Deep Verge or just another so-called promising technology business that leaks millions a year to director and officer fees. It's enough is enough. So I think if the board was onto something, it is definitely a return of cash to shareholders. I find it puzzling why they would even need to retain 20 million themselves when they will have claimed to be well on to break even by then, but it's neither here nor there. But again, the first most important step is to get independent board members elected. And remember, this is if you don't like this slate or you want to have discussions or get to know them, these nominees better, or have other candidates, we're very happy to have that dialogue with other shareholders. I just see a question about Nanoco and Richard Griffiths and the North American Investment Trust, I'm presuming. Look, these party share investments, we've received from our researchers an email showing that there was that the two parties were linked. It would be nothing short of pathetic to say that they don't interact closely. The same goes with Lombard Odier and Richard Griffiths and the long-term relationship between Henry Turkin and Mr. Griffiths. We have shareholder support, and we've had a lot of engagement with institutional and retail shareholders. It's clear that Nanoco's board has gone back to the drawing board. They want to stay aligned with the same folks. That's fine. Why don't we make a takeover offer? So you're talking about the high potential of Nanoco, so why not offer a fair price to shareholders to take over? So just to go back to the point of, we don't really know what's in there, right? We know the company's trading at a discount to cash, which reflects there's no easier way to show the lack of faith that the market has in the current board and current management team. But by no means do we have enough information to understand, the scope of value underpinning this spend in the organic business. What work has been done to identify infringers, right? And how and what spend is required to monetize those patents and secure licensing and litigation proceeds. I think it's very presumptuous, and the idea of a takeover offer is not something that I'm considering or anyone here. I've just got someone here asking about a legal claim and not explain the judgments, the documents, and where the judge sanctioned Greg for lying. I don't think there's a sense to get back into this, although you know what, as Greg explained to me, there was an issue over the use of Slack. Greg, if you could just chime in for the sake of transparency over these issues in your case, and the lack of understanding the judge had over the use of Slack and how that impeded the discovery process, that'd be great. I think it's best to be transparent with the shareholders. Sure.
The issue was that Slack at that time was a private and unstable software. It required us to write our own software to actually search the data to produce the documents that were requested. And the instability in the Slack software caused errors in our search software. And the judge did not believe that explanation. And there was nothing I could do about his belief that I wasn't being truthful. There's several electronic court filings that people can look up and see an in-depth explanation.
Thank you. I see there's another question about a letter removed from the stock exchange. We received no notification that a letter was moved from a stock exchange. All publications that we've put out are available to shareholders, and there's no need to comment on anything else related to that. I think we're just a couple minutes out from a full stop. I'd like to just reiterate that if anyone has any questions, comments, or would like to have further discussion with myself or any of the directors, feel free to send us an email at any of the above emails listed on the screens, or to reach out to our advisors at Morrow Sodali or Camarco. Unless I've got any other questions here, going to make this a wrap. Okay, everyone. Thanks for your time.